Okay, alrighty. Wonderful. It's another beautiful day, if I were lying to myself. How you doing? It's another miserable February. A miserable February day, crappy weather. I need to go back to Florida. I need to move to Florida. Not really. I'm not a big fan of skin cancer. Best mirrorless value currently as of February, March. And I know the XT30 is about to drop for $900. And until the XT3 and the XH1 get that firmware update for a vastly improved eye autofocus, which of course they will. I've actually already been confirmed from Fujifilm, a representative, that of course the XT3 will get that, but I mean they're going to add other things. That's the reason why the XT3 does not get it now or very soon from today. But the current best mirrorless value, which is essentially $1,000 off, is $1,300 with a grip, and that is the XH1. The only reason nobody's talking about the XH1 currently is because the XT3 came out, and of course there are some differences. There is a wider, both vertical and horizontal, autofocus point spread on the XT3. Obviously some improved video features. However, the XH1 a couple months ago got a drastic improvement on its IBIS communication with the lens for videography use. XH1 is still an incredible camera. By the way, the XH1, not my opinion, okay? Opinions are one thing, i.e. doxa, and facts or episteme are another. Fact, period, that the toughest current mirrorless camera made is this one, the XH1 Fujifilm. Just not my opinion, it's a fact. I mean, even Fujifilm has a video on the much thicker... I mean, it's not like you're hammering nails with this camera, obviously, so does it ultimately matter? Kind of does, but not really. That's actually really important for frame flexure for the IBIS mechanism, and Fujifilm over-engineered the actual frame on the XH1 for that specific reason. It's also a fact that the XH2 is not coming out until next year. I'm perfectly happy, and I've shot the ever-loving hell and gone out of both these cameras, the XT3 and the XH1. I'm perfectly happy with either. Obviously coming from DSLRs, I mean, I want vertical grips on everything that I could put a vertical grip on. But I mean, the XH1 ergos are obviously superior. The differences, and there are a few differences, the leaf spring shutter release, anybody that's actually tried an XH1, it's just buttery soft. There's also a 5-point spring suspension. There's the IBIS mech, obviously, that's a major difference in body image stabilization. But there's also on the shutter mech itself, 5-point spring suspension when you actually fire off the XH1 for indoor ambient light photography. Really important for the actual wedding itself in the chapel and countless other things. The shutter is incredibly silent. It's very, very dampened. It's absolutely wonderful. There's actually no camera out there like it. Not DSLR for sure, nor mirrorless camera like it. Fujifilm absolutely killed it on that one. So you have the stealth shutter, the IBIS, the leaf spring shutter release. I said leaf spring shutter release, not leaf spring or leaf shutter. Okay, everybody says, did you say leaf shutter? It's like, no, I said leaf spring shutter release. I said we have the new improved firmware for the IBIS mech for videography use, also too for photography. You also obviously have a top panel display. It's the toughest mirrorless camera, as I already said, made in Japan. It's basically $1,000 off. Right now with the grip, this one is $1,299, and the XT3 with vertical grip is $1,700. This one is essentially $1,000 off, roughly, relative to when it came out. It goes, oh, that's the old sensor. Really? I'm perfectly content to use either one. For flash photography, it makes no difference at all. Sensor saturation, this is a BSI sensor, 26 megapixels. This one is a conventional sensor at 24 megapixels. I think most people are familiar with the specifications on the Fujifilm XH1. Both of them obviously are incredible cameras. the XH1 is undeniably, I mean this sincerely, the Nikon D4 of mirrorless cameras. Interestingly enough, nobody's really talking about the XH1 right now, but it is undeniably the best value in the mirrorless cameras to come out. Now, the XT30, which is going to come out, I've had my hands on it for about 4 hours, and I was actually incredibly impressed by it. And it's a very small camera. Very lightweight, very compact. It's going to be $900. It's going to be released just a hair under a month from now on March the 20th. I think a ton of, well, actually I know for a fact that a ton of people are going to buy the XT30. Vastly improved eye autofocus. The XH1 is going to get firmware updates, as will the XT3. As far as any advantages on the XT30 over that of the XH1 or XT3, I mean the XT30 of course is a simplified version of the XT3. It's a lot smaller. I'm so happy they actually put a joystick on it. But there is no other value out there right now, unless it's like a really, really cheap. Actually, for the money, I mean, a current XT2 with vertical grip is going for about $950. That's used price, okay? Used, $950. For really $300 more than that. You know, not that the XT2 isn't great. I still have one of my XT2s. For $300 more than that, $1,300, the XH1 with vertical grip is just, you know, this is not an opinion video. This is currently the best deal in mirrorless cameras. I mean, the XH1 is, I mean, it's built like a brick outhouse. It's got IBIS, vastly improved firmware for autofocus. It's going to get firmware update for eye autofocus. Even unlike the XT3, which obviously came later, which still has tiny little buttons here, which I refuse to use either one of these small buttons for back button autofocus, the actual XH1 has significantly large and well-placed buttons for assigning one of these back buttons to back button autofocus, which I have currently set on the XH1. If you're coming from a DSLR, you'd be incredibly happy with it. Actually, everybody that bought an XH1 on my recommendation has been incredibly happy. Even a couple of people in the camera store, they brought in, it was just like 4 days ago, a guy came in with his XH1. Was, oh, I watch your videos about this XH1 off your recommendation. He was asking me for some tips and tricks on the XH1, which of course I gladly gave him. It was Fujifilm. A couple representatives came in showing off the new lenses and the new XT30 and the new 16mm 2.8. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because the XH1 is not getting any love recently, and Fujifilm has slashed the ever-loving hell out of the price on the camera, and it's an incredible camera. Incredible. I can also make a very bold statement, which is extremely accurate, and it will be impossible for me to be proven wrong. I'm 100% correct on this statement, is that the XH1 is kind of like that stalwart camera like a Nikon D4 is a perfect analogy, where even 5 years from now, it's like, hey, you know, it's 5 years later than you're going to sell that XH1. It's like, no, I mean, I'm incredibly happy with the camera. It's built to last, it's tough as nails, and it's got IBIS, it's got incredible ergos. The shutter release mech and that spring, 5-point spring suspension on the shutter mech is incredibly quiet. The XH1 is an amazing camera. I haven't talked about it recently because I've been talking about everything else, obviously, but given the current price point on the XH1, it is undeniably the best current value on mirrorless cameras. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you like these videos. If you do, you always click the link below. Tell me how much you hate me or can't stand me, or you know, you want me to jump off a cliff or something like that. But wait for it. Fujifilm.